Dude, 12 episodes, man. This is a holdout from the golden age of television. We're lucky to get 12, 3 episodes a week, whole movie a week. But it is going to be a marathon to watch and then also podcast about and not somehow fall behind within that. But yes, dude, totally excited.
Welcome, everyone, to Krypton to Alderaan. I'm Joey, your Star Wars lover, and with me is Royce Good Looks, your Star Wars song guy.
Hello, Joey. Hello, podcast.
And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the 1 to 2 Andor trailers we've got, the trailer and the special look, or the trailer that wasn't really a trailer, and the special look that probably should have been the trailer. Anyway, we'll get into all of that. But first, hey, hit subscribe if you haven't already. We are talking about Andor today. We're going to be doing episodes weekly once Andor comes out. They're going to have to be pretty intense episodes.
We're going to be releasing our podcast in 3 arcs, or 4 arcs.
Over the next 4 years. There's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a lot. And I also think it's going to be great. So let's just get right into it. Punch it.
Woo!
Pachoo! Hey, do we still do punch it on video? Listen, I'm still learning how to do these video casts.
We're both learning. Everyone's learning.
We're both learning. We're all learning.
It's hard is what we're learning.
Yeah. Let's just get right into the trailer. The trailer. What I want to know is, Royce, you did not post a reaction video about the trailer, so I have no idea. I have no idea what your reaction is. Did it get you stoked for the season 2 of Andor?
It took me a little while to understand the trailer, and we'll get into the discourse in a minute. You're saying with a podcast there's going to be a lot to talk about. It was so dense. And this trailer is pretty dense too. You're like, wait, they're going to be here, they're going to be there, they're going to be everywhere. And there's all these different factions that are supposed to be coming together. They mentioned that in the special look of how everyone's going to eventually meet. So I love that. I love the idea of the Avengers assembled, the rebels assemble. And of course we know it's going to lead into Rogue One. That's such an interesting way to buttress the whole series of we know where this is going. We know what all this winds up meaning in the end. And I think that's going to make for a really great season. There's not going to be any waffling of well, maybe we'll get a season 3 or a season 4. We don't know yet if this season goes well. You get something like The Acolyte setting up all this kind of crazy stuff and we're not going to explore any of it now. But with Andor, it has to perfectly marry into Rogue One. And I'm really excited about that. And the trailers, there's tons of action in there. TIE fighters, there's X-Wings, there's Brasso.
We get a look at B2 Emo in the special look. We know K2 is coming, but in the trailer we didn't see B2. And luckily we get to see him a little bit in the special look. So he's okay, and he's still out there. And yeah, I love that. Andor is the furthest from Star Wars that... It's just the furthest from the Star Wars box that we talk about in my mind. I loved the first season of the show, obviously, I've said that on here ad nauseum, but it's not really Star Wars-y to me. That being said, I loved it, and I'm excited. Season 1 was so good that really, I think regardless of the promotional material or how they format the promotional material for season 2, I'm still going to be excited about it. That's just also an incredible thing. No matter how much, if you maybe mess up the marketing for season 2, season 1 was so great that I'm still going to be excited for season 2. It is also kind of a bummer in my mind that we're not getting more. It's so good, right? Season 1 was so good. I could watch this forever. We're kind of 2 seasons and done. And then maybe Rogue One is season 3 and the original trilogy is season 4. And that just goes into this all being just one continuous story, and they're not really being maybe seasons. It's all part of the saga and filling in the gaps. From the real world perspective, it's a bummer to only get 2 seasons of a show.
You already want more. Hasn't even premiered yet.
You're right. Without having seen season 2 at all, I'm making these judgments, but it does feel oh man, this is the end. This is gonna end, and that's sad. On one hand, it's sad that it's ending after 2 seasons. On the second hand, it's okay, well, they don't really have a chance to make it go on and to go too long and stuff like that. And Tony Gilroy, I mean, he just won over all of our trust, right? With season 1. One of the things that came out, I think either right after the first season started or maybe before then, it was like, Tony Gilroy says he's not a Star Wars fan, which wasn't really the quote. He was more like, hey, I'm not really in this world at all, but I still wanted to make a good TV show. And he, without like being a super fan of Star Wars, made incredible Star Wars, right? Some of the best Star Wars, building off of something that was already like a lot of people's favorite Star Wars. When Rogue One came out, it was so many people's favorite. And it brought so many new people into Star Wars. And I think Andor season 1 did that too. So there's a lot of maybe meta excitement about Andor as well.
Yeah, I love the whole connection with Rogue One is really interesting. That this, like, he was already involved with one of the films and how close that was already to the original trilogy. It's definitely dicey territory to navigate. Like, it's interesting how well that's been received and how well Andor is received versus, you know, other properties that we don't have to go into today, you know.
Other properties that also had questionable music associated with them, perhaps.
Interesting. Yeah. Are we ripping the gloves off? Is when are they coming off?
Yeah, they could come off. One of my main points from my reaction video was that I thought the content of the trailer was good. I liked seeing the tease for the show. I mean, the music was just a huge disconnect. There's no reason to like maybe beat around the bush with this. I think we're both feeling that. I think that you felt it so much that maybe you had recorded a reaction video and didn't. That's a little peek behind the curtains, but like that's how much it impacted us.
Can I fact check you? You said, oh, I made a reaction, and I don't know your reaction. I actually recorded a reaction video. I was really excited. I've never done a reaction video, and I was like, I'm going to do it. I'll put it out on my behind-the-scenes Royce Good Looks channel, and maybe we'll put on KTA. We'll have like 2 reactions, and then we can do the pod. I was excited to see the trailer and to react to it. But my gut reaction was visceral. I didn't enjoy it initially. It was confusing to me. And it's taken me this last week and a half or whatever, plus this special look to like finally settle down and be like, okay, yeah, the show. The show is the main thing. And my big takeaways, like trailers, they're not really for you and me, because you already said I'm already stoked for the show. You could totally botch the marketing. I'm still going to watch it. And the marketing doesn't change how good the show is anyway. And you want to talk about Rogue One, it's like that TIE fighter that shoots at Jyn on the tower isn't in the movie. So trailers are nothing, right? Like yeah. I'm going to write off trailers in the future, I think, and not judge the show on the trailer or judge the property on the trailer, because the trailer is not a true representation of the work of art. The trailer is literally just marketing jargon, especially the one that they put out. There's more of the blurbs about the critical acclaim from season 1 than there is about actual dialogue of the show for season 2. So it was not a regular trailer, but I think the show is going to be good. And that's what everyone's taken away. But some people love the music. Do people love reading? Do you want me to read to you all of the words that were overlaid? Because the music aside, the first season of Andor was hailed by critics everywhere. Emotional, thrilling, and exciting. Confident and sophisticated. Truly phenomenal storytelling. A prestige drama with searing action and Emmy-worthy performances. This spring, the critical... Do I have to go on? All of that you had to read in a 1 minute and 30-second trailer. Like, am I watching the trailer or am I reading the press release?
Right.
It was called trailer.
I think that's the mistake. I honestly think that that's the mistake. And we put a lot of stock into like what things are named, which sometimes get very silly. It's like, it's called the X show, but X wasn't in this episode, which I think like we've gotten away from and is just a silly thing. And Johnny from Star Wars Things commented on my reaction video with a really interesting take about it not necessarily being a trailer, but being more of like the back of the book blurbs, right, like praising the content, which is fine.
For season 1, do a montage of season 1 and include all that exactly as a teaser.
It maybe should not have been in the trailer. Like those maybe should have been 2 separate things, and you could have like added the special look footage.
You would have got a whole nother week of marketing out of it. You know, like when we got Rise of Skywalker, they did a whole like Skywalker trilogy thing into the trailer. I forget how that worked out, but we could have milked it a little bit more, marketing team. You guys sold yourselves short. Joey, I I told myself I wouldn't get too heated, and we're going to get comments about how much of like the nerd rage is going on. Selling
That's fine.
Star Wars short, though, that music, have we abandoned all originality? There's a fantastic composer that's written some fantastic music for this series. They couldn't have composed another minute and a half of music.
Andor season 1 was full of great things. One of the greatest things was the music that was written, and the music that was written in world. Like, they went above and beyond with the music, with the score, and the diegetic music in season 1. The trailers for these shows are just getting more and more like the way that every other trailer is made in Hollywood. I talk so much about keeping an open mind to Star Wars changing and the way we look at Star Wars and the people who create Star Wars, and it's all going to change and grow. But stuff like this removes the specialness to me. When you have that music, the music that John Williams built, the music that was built on that foundation, and more music that will be built on that foundation to come, but you make this like a big blockbuster Michael Bay trailer. I tried to make that not my reaction when doing my reaction video because I was paying attention to the content and Mon Mothma dancing, and it's fun and it looks like it's visually stunning. But the more I sat with it, the more I was like, this just takes away from specialness.
Joey, they posted the critical reviews that said the show was confident and sophisticated. What is sophistication saying, let's pick up this song from Spotify and we'll put that in the trailer? Any other movie can take The Revolution Starts Now and pay Steve Earle and put that in their movie. Nobody else, though, well, with the exception of a few people, can get John Williams to write them an original score for their movie, you know, or just any original person,
or Michael Giacchino, or the people who are actually working on the score in the show to begin with. It's such a disconnect that it feels less special than Star Wars can feel.
Yeah, so this is why I didn't post my reaction, because, you know, your gut reaction isn't your real reaction. Like, this trailer wasn't for me. So why, like, it wasn't literally made for me. It was made for somebody else that's not already watching the show. It works on the marketing, advertising, business. Like, I understand the decision to put that song in there to grab a regular Joe Schmo or just somebody that wasn't already into Andor because it's kind of on the fringes, right? That makes sense. And so I need to take that into account for every next trailer that's got a Huttese version of insert whatever song. And I'm with you, like Star Wars box expanding. I would love it to be something different for me, but I did see a lot of people saying like, I love this pairing of the music. Yeah. So there's some people that worked totally for. Like anything with Star Wars, like 50% of the people are going to be on one side and the other side. And we all like different things about Star Wars, and that's cool. That's why we have the show, so we can share our opinions.
Yes. That said, what was in the trailer that excited us, and what are we excited to see?
I don't know if I'm going to jump ahead in your notes a little bit, but like, I think cameos could be a really, not a cheat code like some other series where like we can just put in a cameo and that'll spice people up. And I don't mean cameo like Jack Black and Lizzo cameo. I mean like...
Hey, I like that episode.
The amount of characters that they could bring in this era could be really interesting. Even if it's just subtle, you know, like I would love to see like a Bail Organa. Like he's one of my favorite characters from this time period. And it's like sad when he's sent off in Rogue One. And he's like, I will go back to Alderaan and let them know there'll be no peace. And you're like, ooh, that's powerful, that scene. I would love to see Bail Organa. What about you?
If we're jumping right into the cameo spotlight, I think, like you're saying, there's the opportunity to, subtly or not, introduce so many characters this way. Cal Kestis is working with Saw Gerrera at this point. I doubt we'll get Cal Kestis, but he's there at that point in time. Bail Organa recruits Ahsoka. There's the Ghost crew. There's so much happening right now that it would be, and we do get a little bit of that kind of stuff in Rogue One, but it would be an incredible like triumph. It would make me feel like triumphant in regard to the rebellion if we saw these people literally coming together to do this. There would be something very special. It wouldn't just be, like you're saying, it wouldn't just be shoehorning someone in to this show to be like, look at that, look who's on the screen. It would be a symbol of like where the rebellion finally putting the pieces of the puzzle together like they do really well in Star Wars Rebels. All of this also happens over the Star Wars Rebels timeline, and eventually they joined the larger unified rebellion, right? So there would be something very special in that.
I love that, dude. Get all the rebels, even if they're like, they show Yavin Base or whatever, like if they're just in the background there, we see the ghost in Andor or in Rogue One, but we don't see any of the crew and it's not played up, like Hera could just be in the background. Chopper could just...
We see Chopper. Do we think there will actually be a plot point about his sister? It's the way the entire series started. I would not necessarily maybe always be a stickler for something like this, and I'm not being a stickler now. I'm just really curious that the entire series started that way. He goes to that, cantina, whatever it is.
He's looking for his sister, right?
For his sister. Yeah. And then we get the flashbacks of him on Kenari. Is that the name of that planet? And so we see a little bit of his past and all that stuff, and presumably his sister on that planet. Do we think they'll pick that thread up at all? Like, it just seems like we're going into the end game here. If we don't pick it back up, it's really weird that the series started that way for me.
Yeah, I don't know if it has to like come full circle, I don't particularly mind if that's abandoned because like you said, we're moving towards something else, but I do think it speaks to Andor's character of like, he's had a rough time, right? I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. I've been looking for my sister, can't find my sister. Right. I hope she's out there somewhere.
You're not the one who's lost everything.
Whether or not he's continuing to try to find her, or if they cross paths and that plays into the plot, if she's like a prisoner somewhere, or if she's working with the Imperials or something, or he finds out that she was a victim of an attack by the Empire or something. Maybe it'll play further into his character development, but like they already set that up, that he has this kind of tragic story of like losing his whole tribe and just being like adopted into the resistance per se,
Yeah, I guess like the beginning of the show does just set up the Imperial spotlight that gets put on him and Cyril going after him. Like, it's not like this thing with his sister happens in the beginning of the series and then it just cuts away and we never talk about it again. It does set up the entire rest of season 1.
You could justify spending time on that in the plot, I think. If someone was like, hey, have you heard any news about your sister? And he's like, no, I'm still looking. They could they could bring it up and maybe it could play into whatever themes that they're exploring in the show. And we'll see. Who knows?
So what other moments are there in the trailer or the special look that's got you like amped up for season 2?
I really love that scene where there's the like stormtroopers without their helmets. I think that's like a very interesting way to start addressing the Empire, because like you never see any stormtroopers in the original trilogy without helmets, right? We see Finn in The Force Awakens. That's the first time we like identify, with like one of these like faceless soldiers, right? You're like stormtroopers, whatever, like mow them all down. They're not people. They're stormtroopers. And the idea that like, even with like Deidre, like you're humanizing some of these like Imperials, like she's not wearing a helmet or whatnot, but that you're like, there's a person here that's doing their job and they're serving their empire or whatnot. And it's less of just like bad guy bad, this uniform bad. And you're like, there's people there. So I think that could be interesting. Like, I don't know if we'll get to know that particular crew. It would be a shame to not get to know some of those characters, or maybe not get to know them, but like, I hope we get to see some facial reactions and like the emotional state that they're in on the job that they're going on. Just like when you remove Din's helmet, at the end of season 1 of Mando, and you're like, oh, there's a guy under there, right? The whole time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like we do see it. We do get that a little bit in the Bad Batch, but with very early stormtroopers,
maybe some
right? The
clones,
transition between the clone troopers and the conscription soldiers. Right. I think it's also interesting to humanize those characters so that the evil that we're seeing people commit is not like hidden behind a faceless, nameless mask. It is people. The Empire is made up of people who believe in the Empire committing these evil acts. It's not just a stormtrooper with its helmet. That was maybe the biggest spotlight of season 1, was seeing Deirdre and the ISB. Those characters be people, like you said, just doing their jobs. And the amount of times like I was rooting for Deirdre and then had to check myself and be like, oh no, she is part of a very militaristic, xenophobic, horrible Empire machine, and maybe we shouldn't be rooting for her. So that was another amazing thing about season 1 that I hope carries over into season 2, is providing that for us, being like, oh, we can't root for these people. Like, she's a woman in the Empire and she's like fighting against all these patriarchal systems. And I'm like, yeah, go. And I'm like, oh, don't go. Actually, if you succeed in changing this organization to accept you, the organization will be made more powerful because you're like pointing out the flaws in the system.
Dude.
So it's like, I want her to succeed because she should be able to like succeed, but I don't want her to succeed because the system's bad and she loves the system. So it's really incredible. Like the political, that like all that structure that they fed into season 1 and made us pay attention to. It just really is where the show shines, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of us kind of fell for her character and you're like kind of rooting for her sort of thing. And that's, to me, that really helps make characters and TV shows have a little bit more gravitas, that like none of us are perfect, man. And maybe some of us are on the like the Imperial side and some of us on the Rebel side. And that's like, you could draw some more black and white lines there, but like nobody's perfect. And it is interesting that you're like, oh, I like this character, but I'm conflicted about rooting for them. I think about even Saul from The Acolyte, where you're like, Saul's a beacon of light. He's the best Jedi ever. And you're like, actually, he's a murderer and he lied to the daughter. You know, it's like, ooh, that's complex there. And I don't know how I feel about that. And I have to sit with that. And who do I actually want to like put my faith and trust behind? And that's uncomfortable. And that's also great television.
When we first meet Cassian ever, like the first thing we see him do 5 seconds into Rogue One is murder somebody.
Right. Same thing in Andor too. He does the same thing.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time with his character and his backstory and understand like what he's lived through and the reasoning behind stuff. Filling in the gap, filling in the why, which changes everything. That changes everything. That's the whole point of all of these, right? So do you think that there is room, this is a question out of left field that we did not discuss beforehand, but do you think that there's room for us to get this with Krennic? Like, we see him in the special look, and there's a moment in like, I hate the Empire characters in Rogue One. They're very hateable. Like, like we're supposed to, right? I'm not saying like, oh, they were bad characters. I'm saying like, I hate them. They're bad. We're supposed to hate them, right? It's classic Star Wars, good guy, bad guy. But there's a moment in Rogue One when Tarkin is taking over the Death Star project from Krennic, where it's this very human, I don't know if I want to say human, but it's this moment of like, oh, I can almost feel bad for Krennic,
right?
Because this is his life's work and this dude is swooping in at the last minute to take all the credit. It would be incredible to get a little bit more backstory from him in the season 2 to kind of amplify that. Like, oh no, he's a human with a family and I don't want this character to be this villain to be humanized, you know?
Yeah.
Do you think they'll take that risk in season 2?
Yeah, I don't know if we see a little bit of Krennic and like Galen, and maybe they're like buddies or something for a period of time, you know? Like there's a rift that's created, obviously, and Galen wants to be on a farm, you know, and like escapes. So that could be interesting if they give a little like Galen backstory with that. Krennic will be a great bad guy though. And maybe you could sprinkle in Tarkin at some point as well. But yeah, I'm interested to see more of that. I love his line about, doesn't this feel palpable? Like classic Empire dialogue. I live for that. Like you're saying, I hate these guys, but you love to hate them.
Yeah, I really do love to hate them. I love to love Bix though. And at the end of season 1, I was so afraid that Bix and Brasso and B2 were like gonna go off and not be part of the story that leads into Rogue One. But we see Bix a lot in the trailer in the special look, and we see her and Caspian like fighting side by side. And now I almost wish that she would have just gone off and not have been part of season 2, because there's no way that that ends well. But that's something else that I'm really excited to see.
You were saying like tie in Andor's sister, Cassian's sister. I love the like Ferrix crew. I'm really excited to see Brasso. People are saying like that's Dantooine or something, one of their like rebel bases where they meet up or whatever. I love just the regular people in the world. Like you're saying, like, I'm going to punch a stormtrooper, you know? Like, Brasso is a mechanic. He's not a soldier, you know? There's so much in Star Wars about, like, regular people than having to, like, take up arms. And so, like, the people of Ferrix, I think, embody that very well. So it'd be interesting if we go back to that planet. Like, maybe it looks like they're on that with that plow that's, like, pulling up bricks or something. I don't know if we, like, revisit it or not. But yeah, I'm really excited for Brasso. I love that he's already in, like, the stormtroopers' faces. Like, that maybe is going to be a trope of his character. So I'm totally here for that. And I'm totally here for the like Dantooine, Yavin sort of thing, if there's something between like moving bases there or whatnot. Like, again, further filling in the somehow of like that one line of dialogue from A New Hope, you know?
Yeah, I would be very excited to see Dantooine just because of that one line from A New Hope. That the only reason we remember that line is because immediately after they press the button to blow up Alderaan, she tells them that the base is on Dantooine, which is a lie, and then they blow up her planet. But yeah, very excited to see that cast from Ferrix, hoping to get more of Nemec's, maybe a little play of Nemec's manifesto. We're talking about like what we want to see and what we're excited about and stuff like that. I feel like we're discussing it as if it's going to be like a normal episode to episode series, and we don't even know what we've seen. So we don't even know what timeline anything we've seen is.
Maybe they've hidden an entire timeline.
The show is going to come out in 3-episode arcs that span 4 years. This is completely new, a completely new format to Star Wars. I mean, some of the animated stuff, a lot of the animated stuff does stuff in 3-episode arcs, but these time jumps over 4 years leading directly into Rogue One. I wonder how much we've actually seen in the trailer that's not just like from 1 or 2 of those arcs. Diego Luna at the end of the special look, he says something like, do not have any expectations, right? And all we're talking about here today is like our expectations.
As far as I remember, like there were like A and B plots in the other arcs from season 1. So like the wedding could be at the same time of like, that square where there's an explosion and an attack. Like it's not that every plot point we saw in the trailers is one of the arcs. Like some of those can overlap or be within the same time period. We just don't know. So it would be cool, like if it is, the first week or 2 that we've seen footage for, but not the end. We're bashing on trailers, but maybe they withheld some of the good stuff from the trailer because the show's got a lot to get through. Dude, 12 episodes, man. This is a holdout of all of the streaming shows. This is a holdout from the golden age of television. We're lucky to get 12, and I'll bet that there'll be 40 minutes or whatever, probably the average, but 3 episodes a week, a whole movie a week, an entire arc a week. And we know that Andor episodes are dense to begin with. So even if it's only 40 minutes, like they take advantage of every minute in the show, It's not light and fluffy, right? It's like, here's a whole monologue, and it's like, I got to rewind and put the subtitles on to catch all the nuance here, right? I think that's going to be fun. I really like the idea of like the arc format. With season 1, I do remember being like, oh, I need to see what's next, and you want the next week to come sooner. It's fun to sit with it and speculate and whatnot, and maybe easier for podcasters, but this will be really interesting to see how it shapes up this way. And maybe it's another experiment by Lucasfilm and Disney Plus of like, how can we approach other series in the future? I really miss 24-episode seasons of television where it's like we are packing in a ton of stuff. Think of how much content you had to come up with, how many plot points, how many characters you could explore in a 20-episode season. This is only 12, but that's still a lot more than we normally get.
Yeah, like a 24-episode season of Lost or Smallville, there were several episodes of
some filler, maybe.
Yeah. So this is, like you're saying, this is very compact and dense. What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do?
You watch Star Wars all day? Are we going to
record for 3 hours?
We're going to have to figure it out, yeah.
It's just a format that we're so not used to. And when we were talking about the trailer, and I talked about like it being very cookie cutter, right? Like big budget Hollywood blockbuster movie cookie cutter trailer. But the actual format of the show is so opposite of that, which is why I think it's another, like, that's another disconnect in my mind, because this is such a new format. It's new and different, and it's going to subvert our expectations, I'm pretty sure.
I love a good spectacle, and I think it's going to be that, but it is going to be a marathon to watch and then also podcast about and not fall behind within that. But yes, dude, totally excited. So listeners, we want to know, are you excited for season 2 of Andor? How did you feel about the music? The trailer, the blurbs? Let us know what your favorite blurb was down in the comments. Make sure to hit subscribe and tune in next time for more nerdy pop culture, but mostly Star Wars. Thanks for watching the podcast today. I've been Royce.
I've been Marva's Brick.
And we've been Krypton. To
Ferrix. Probably Ferrix. Bye.